What's going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside Hartford, Connecticut. And today, we'll be doing part one of a three-part series discussing every team's top 10 prospects. Of course, this will be the AL and the NL Easts, respectively. First off, before we start the video, I do want to quickly discuss what the term prospect is and how MLB determines this. So these are from the MLB.com official website, these prospect rankings. And now, the term prospect obviously means a rookie, a guy who's not in the big leagues. But how do they determine that? So, there's two ways. The first is the player must have, to graduate from rookie status, you must have had 130 at-bats in the major league levels if you're a hitter, or 50 innings pitched if you are a pitcher. So, once you hit those thresholds, you're no longer a rookie for the next season. So, let's just say, hypothetically, Nate Pearson for the Blue Jays ends up pitching 53 innings this year. Come 2021, he is no longer considered a prospect. The other thing is if you spend 45 days on the Major League Baseball's 25-man roster. So again, we'll go with Pearson. Let's just say Pearson spends, he spends 47 days on the big league's roster. He is no longer considered a prospect for the next season. However, in a regular season, of course, this is a different year. 2020 is a weird year. But in a normal season, on September 1st past, so September 1st through the end of the regular season, the playing time there does not count. So let's just say, we'll go with a different guy here. We'll go with Atlanta's Drew Waters. Let's just say Atlanta calls up Drew Waters on September 1st in a normal season, and he gets 103 at-bats. He is still considered a prospect because the 45 days there does not apply after September 1st, again, in a regular season. This is 2020. We all know it's an abnormal season. So let me jump in and quickly discuss the team's prospects. I do have it color-coded, as you can see, and it was going to be messy no matter what. I figured this was the best way to do it. So, of course, we'll start with the AL East, and we have the Baltimore Orioles up here. And I'm not going to read every single team's top 10 players because it's not plausible to do it, but I'll try to. So we'll start with the Baltimore Orioles, as I said, and they have a strong top 10. They actually have 4 of the MLB's top 100 prospects in their farm system, and they are, of course, their catcher Adley Rutschman, who is the number 4th prospect in all of baseball. They have right-handed pitcher Grayson Rodriguez, who is the 38th prospect in baseball. They have outfielder Houston Kjerstad, who is the number 64 prospect. And they have left-handed pitcher D.L. Hall, who is the 73rd prospect in all of baseball. And then you have first baseman outfielder Ryan Mountcastle, shortstop Gunnar Henderson, shortstop Jordan Westburg, outfielder Yusniel Diaz, and a pair of right-handed pitchers in Michael Bowman and Dean Kremer. So, of these guys, 80%, or 8 of them, I should say, were drafted by the Orioles, while 2 of them were acquired via trade. Those 2 are Yusniel Diaz and Dean Kremer. They were actually both acquired in the Manny Machado trade from the LA Dodgers. So, yeah, they're the 8th and the 10th prospects. Remember, Baltimore's really had a lot of struggles early on, or this past half decade, so they have a lot of high picks. So that's where these guys come from, because remember, Rutschman was actually the number 1 pick last year, 2019. Kjerstad was a bit of a questionable pick when they picked him I'm pretty sure they picked him at 2 here in 2020. A lot of people were like, what? What are you doing? So they picked him to save money. It's a logical move there. So that's why they have him. D.L. Hall seems to be in the system for a long time. I always remember hearing D.L. Hall. So we'll see. Mountcastle's doing solid. He's a good player. But, yeah, this farm system's kind of good for Baltimore. They have some pitchers that they can hopefully rely on. So, fingers crossed for them. They definitely deserve a chance. It's going to be interesting with a pair of shortstops in your top 10 if they'll both pan out. What will you do? Will you try to move one to second? Will you try to move one to third? Will you move one to the center field spot? We'll see. Boston Red Sox. So Boston has only 2 guys in the top 100, and they're going to be, of course, second baseman, shortstop Jeter Downs, and first baseman Tristan Casa. Now, Downs is actually the 47th ranked prospect, while Tristan Casas is the 81st. So we all know Jeter Downs was acquired from the LA Dodgers in the Mookie Betts trade this past offseason. He was actually acquired by the Dodgers in a trade again, so it just goes to show you, sometimes a top prospect is good, but teams don't necessarily want to hang on to him. They see him more as trade bait. And then after those two, Boston has third baseman, first baseman Bobby Dahlbeck, right-handed pitcher Brian Mata, outfielder Gilberto Jimenez, right-handed pitcher Noah Song, left-handed pitcher Jay Grome, outfielder Jarren Duran, and a pair of right-handers in Thad Ward and Tanner Hook. Of them, 7 of these players were drafted by Boston. 2 of them were signed as international free agents, and the aforementioned Jeter Downs was acquired via trade. So when I say international free agents, that means a player from typically the Dominican area. So, of course, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Dominica, Caracas, all those islands in the area there. Venezuela, Colombia, Costa Rica, Peru, all those areas. They're not in American school systems, so they don't have to wait. They just have to wait until they're 16 to officially sign. And there is a signing date. It's July 1st when you can officially start to sign these guys. Now, Boston actually had a bit of a scandal a couple years back where they signed a bunch of guys for dirt cheap because they would bundle and pay guys under the table. They would get like 5 guys to sign for dirt cheap, and then they would just, pay them under the table so they could afford more players. They got punished for that. They lost a bunch of their free agents. And some of them, they just went all over the place. So it's hard to track where they all went. I know one of them went to Philly. But Boston, again, getting caught cheating. No surprise. We'll get to the New York Yankees. And their number 1 prospect is outfielder Jason Dominguez. He is the 55th prospect in all of baseball. He's 17 years old. But Jason Dominguez, according to a lot of scouting reports, looks like he could be the next Mike Trout. He's getting comparisons to all of these big-name players in the history of the league. Joe DiMaggio's name has been tossed in there. Jason Dominguez definitely has a bright future, but people are way overhyping him. He has yet to play professionally in the United States. I just wanted to mention him, though. Again, 17 years old. He signed as a free agent last season, 2019. He signed a huge paycheck to go to the Yankees. After him, they have Clark Schmidt, who was the 95th prospect in baseball, and who's a right-handed pitcher, and another right-handed pitcher, and Deivi Garcia, who is the 99th pitcher or prospect in all of baseball. So they have 3 top 100 players. And then you have shortstop Oswald Pereza, right-handed pitcher Luis Gil, catcher Austin Wells, outfielder Estevan Florial, a pair of righties in Alexander Vizcano and Yoandres Gomez, and shortstop Anthony Velope. So again, it's not the strongest system in all of baseball, but Clark Schmidt's looking good. Yankees fans are definitely hoping he gets called up soon because that pitching staff is just dealing with injuries left and right. Of them, 6 of these players were actually signed as the free agents there. Only 3 of them were drafted, and they did acquire one of them via trade. That would be Luis Gil. So the Yankees, you'll see the Yankees made a big run with international free agent signings because they usually sign players in free agency and they have to give up their picks. So they typically don't have top picks in the draft. Plus they're the Yankees, so they're usually a middle tier team at worst. So yeah, Clark Schmidt's a bit of an exception, but a lot of these guys were just signed via free agency. You can kind of tell because a lot of these teams, you can just look at their players and say, okay, someone like, Gilberto Jimenez or Estevan Florial probably was an international free agent signing. After that, we'll go to the Tampa Bay Rays, and they have the number 1 prospect in all of baseball in shortstop Wander Franco. Like I said, number 1 prospect in baseball. A lot of people are excited about him. Then they have left-handed pitcher / designated hitter Brendan McKay, who is the 16th prospect in baseball. Now, McKay, he did make his MLB debut in the 2019 season, but he is still prospect eligible. They typically are using him as a pitcher more than a hitter, but he could be the next Shohei Ohtani. The Rays hope he does better on the pitching side than Ohtani, and then they have the 48th prospect in baseball, with second baseman, shortstop Vidal Brujan, and the 76th prospect in baseball with second baseman, shortstop Xavier Edwards. Again, it's good that those two guys are both versatile. Brujan's definitely the higher regarded player, but Edwards shouldn't be slept on either. And they also have the 98th prospect in baseball and right-handed pitcher Shane Baz, who they acquired in the infamous Chris Archer trade from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then they have just four more pitchers: right-handed pitcher Brett Honeywell, left-handed pitcher Shane McClanahan, a pair of righties in Nick Bitsko and Joe Ryan, and then an outfielder in Josh Lowe. So you can see the Rays are definitely heavy infield, like middle infield and pitching, which is good because you can always trade pitchers and middle infielders. They're definitely there for a premium. If a couple of these pitchers pan out, the Rays are in a good position. But again, they have 5 top 100 prospects, and they drafted 6 of these players. They signed 2 of them as international free agents, and they acquired 2 of them via trade, and that would be their pair of infield prospects in Vidal Brujan and, of course, Xavier Edwards. Now we get to Toronto, and Toronto, again, they have another stronger farm system, but it's more top-heavy. They have the 20th prospect in baseball and right-hander Nate Pearson, who we know made his MLB debut this season, the short in 2020. They have the 20th prospect in baseball. Pearson's the 9th. The 20th prospect in baseball is going to be shortstop outfielder Austin Martin. And then they also have the 79th prospect in shortstop Jordan Grossans. Then they have just a bunch more prospects in right-hander Simeon Woods Richardson, whom they acquired via trade, and righty Alec Manoah. They also have catcher Alejandro Kirk, shortstop Orelvis Martinez, catcher Gabriel Morano, shortstop second baseman Miguel Hirado, and right-handed pitcher Adam Kloffenstein. So again, this team, similar to the Rays, has a lot of pitching prospects and then middle infield prospects. Then they have a pair of catchers. It's always good to have catching prospects because even if they don't pan out behind the plate, you can typically convert them to a first baseman, especially in the AL. You can just put them in the DH if they can hit, if defense is their biggest black hole. But they, like I said, they're a top-heavy team. They drafted 5 of their prospects here. They signed 4 of them, and I had mentioned that they traded for Simeon Woods Richardson. Now we get to the NL East, and we'll go to the Atlanta Braves. And they are, again, a top-heavy prospect pool, but they're not weak. They have a strong, they definitely have a strong prospect pool. They have with them the number 14 prospect and outfielder Christian Pache, who made his MLB debut about 3 weeks ago, when the Braves were dealing with a lot of injuries. Of course, Markakis Markakis was out, and Acuna was out. So they needed to make a move. They called him up. He didn't do that hot, but of course it's a debut. You're not expecting everything. And also, they have the 27th ranked prospect in outfielder Drew Waters. If you're a Braves fan, you definitely have a bright outfield future to look at because you have Acuna and these 2 guys on the farm system. Then you have the 41st prospect in right-handed pitcher Ian Anderson. He also made his debut recently. He's been doing very good, especially for a rookie. It is a shortened 2020 season, but don't sleep on Ian Anderson. And then they have the 74th prospect in catcher Shea Langeries. I don't know too much about him. But then they have right-handed pitcher Bryce Wilson, shortstop Braden Schumacher, left-handed pitcher Kyle Muller, catcher William Contreras, and a pair of lefties in Tucker Davidson and Jared Schuster. So, again, I don't want to call it a top-heavy system like I did, but it does have a lot of strong names in it. That outfield for Atlanta is going to be deadly in a couple years. It's going to be rivaled by the Nationals' strong outfield, especially if they had kept Harper. But the Braves are in a very good position right now for their future. For the Braves, they had 80% of these players were drafted, 8 of them were drafted, 2 of them were signed as international free agents. Go to the Marlins here, and the Marlins, they have another strong system, and you're going to notice an abnormality. They have a lot of guys that they traded for, which makes sense. They're the Marlins. So their number 1 prospect is the 24th in baseball, starting pitcher, right-hand pitcher Sixto Sanchez. He made his debut in August this year, sorry. He made his debut in August 2020. He looks good. He's a solid pitcher. Then they have the 29th prospect in outfielder J.J. Bleday. They have the 40th prospect in right-handed pitcher Max Meyer. They have the 70th prospect in shortstop Jazz Chisholm. And they have the 86th prospect in outfielder Jesus Sanchez. And they have the 92nd prospect in right-handed pitcher Edward Cabrera. They also have left-handed pitcher Braxton Garrett, first baseman Lewin Diaz, left-handed pitcher Trevor Rogers, and outfielder Monte Harrison. Monte Harrison was acquired in the now infamous Christian Yelich trade. Do want to shout him out there. So the Marlins, like I said, they traded for a lot of these guys. Sixto Sanchez came over from the JT Realmuto trade from Philly. And 5 of these guys were actually acquired via trade, so that's definitely an abnormality. They drafted 4 of them, and they signed 1. Now I get to the New York Mets, and the Mets have a decent farm system as well. They have the 66th prospect in baseball, shortstop Ronnie Mauricio, the 67th prospect in baseball and catcher Francisco Alvarez, the 91st prospect in shortstop Andres Jimenez, and the 100th prospect in third baseman Brett Baty, as well as right-handed pitcher Matthew Allen, outfielder Pete Crow Armstrong, right-handed pitcher JT Ginn, third baseman Mark Ventios, and left-handed pitcher Thomas Sespucky, along with right-handed pitcher Josh Wolf. So they drafted 7 of these guys and signed 3 of them. The Mets are definitely looking decent right now for the future, but I don't know how they're going to pan out, especially if Pete Alonso doesn't get his act together. This team definitely has a strong offense in the farm system. The pitching, they need a little help, but they should be fine. Then we get the Phillies. So they have the 30th prospect in baseball and third baseman, first baseman Alec Bohm, the 35th prospect in right-handed pitcher Spencer Howard, the 94th prospect in shortstop Bryson Stout, and the 96th prospect in right-handed pitcher Micah Bell, along with their 5th prospect, right-hand pitcher Francisco Morales. 6th is going to be right-hand pitcher Adios Mendia. Then they have shortstop Luis Garcia, catcher Rafael Marchand, shortstop Casey Martin, and right-hand pitcher Aniel De Los Santos. So they signed 5 of these guys. So similar to the Yankees, they make a lot of moves in the international free agency market. They've drafted 4 and they traded for 1, and that's going to be De Los Santos. They acquired him for Freddie Galvis. The Phillies have a lot of young pitchers in their farm system. So 4 through 6 are all younger guys. They drafted Abel this past season, 2020, and then they signed Morales and Medina. Stout's a guy who they also drafted last year. He has the Las Vegas connection like Bryce Harper. Spencer Howard and Alec Bohm both have made their debuts this year. So Bohm's more likely not going to be off the prospect list starting next year. Spencer Howard, there's a chance he will be, but there's a chance he won't be just because he did have an injury. So long term, Alec Bohm's probably moving to first base. Last but not least, we have the Washington Nationals. Like I said, it's a little messy. I apologize for that. Their number 1 prospect is their only top 100 in the 23rd overall prospect in baseball, shortstop second baseman Carter Kieboom. And then they have shortstop second baseman Luis Garcia, not the same one as the Phillies have. Then they have right-handed pitcher Jackson Rutledge, right-handed pitcher Cade Cavella, right-handed pitcher Will Crow, right-handed pitcher Cole Henry, right-handed pitcher Andre Lara, right-handed pitcher Eddie Yeen, right-handed pitcher Mason Denneberg, and left-handed pitcher Tim Cate. So you can see the Nationals, they're always a strong pitching team, and their farm system shows it. Other than their top 2 prospects, it's all pitchers. 6, imagine that. You have 7 guys who are right-hand pitchers, 1 lefty in your top 10. And they drafted 7 of these guys and signed 3 of them. So the Nationals, who knows with them? They're not looking that hot this year. Carter Kieboom, speaking of not looking good, he's looked awful in 2020 for the Nationals. He's actually been quote-unquote demoted to the alternate trading site. But that is going to be the AL and the NL East top 10 prospects for each team. I apologize if I mispronounce some names. Again, I'm not great with pronunciation, but it's definitely interesting to look at this and some big names to watch. Christian Pache from the Braves, of course. Jason Dominguez for the Yankees. You won't be seeing him for a couple years. His estimated time of arrival is 2024. So we'll see with him. Jeter Downs from Boston. Nate Pearson, we've already really seen him make his debut. Obviously Wander Franco. Obviously Brendan McKay. Baltimore, pretty much anyone. DL Hall should hopefully be playing well soon. Ryan Mountcastle is a guy I'm a fan of. Then, Sixto Sanchez from Miami. Carter Kieboom needs to figure himself out. And we've already seen some of the Phillies guys here, but I do like Micah Bell. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Odds are we'll be having the Central video out tomorrow, Wednesday, and then Thursday will be the West. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your day.